One last thing here, Justin, not necessarily tied to the spring game, although it could be. And like you just said, it's difficult to get the information aside from everybody's on display in the spring game. And it's like, okay, we're going to take everything from the spring and kind of tie it into this game. And but is there anything that you were able to get out of player interviews, coaches interviews, video clips, any of the information that gives you any other takeaways that were meaningful from the spring sessions?
Yeah, I mean, so we ended up talking to a bunch of guys yesterday. Talked to Cade, talked to JJ, a bunch of the linemen, Junior Colson, Mike Barrett, even Jake Moody and Brad Robbins as well. So they all great dudes. I think what I would take away is this team is not, they lost Aiden Hutchinson. They lost that leader. I don't think that they are taking a step back. I think that they still have that leadership here. They've got a chip on their shoulder. Even Cade himself has the chip on his shoulder. He's like, why is everyone talking about JJ? I won you a Big Ten championship. So they still have that mentality because I think, what everybody's talking about is it's still Michigan versus everybody, right? Nobody's picking Michigan to go back to back. Everyone's like, all right, it's back to Ohio State again. And so it's that would be the one takeaway I have, that it's still a different energy in the room. They played with energy all spring. They've got these new coaches in, I think they've got a lot to work on, especially on both sides of the ball, really, with new coordinators, to get the X's and O's right. But I think from a leadership and like a want to go get it attitude, they love it. And they're still football players. And I think that, the people that think they're going to take a step back or that they lost it with Aiden Hutchinson or something like that, to me, it just doesn't feel, it doesn't have that feel. They're looking to build on it and be like, all right, we're going back to back. We're taking that trophy and going to Indy again.
Well, Justin, that is the take. The take is Aiden Hutchinson. Okay, David Ajabo, Hassan Haskins, Dax Hill. And then if you could dig a little deeper, Brad Hawkins. And that's the take, is the star power is mostly gone. Therefore, Michigan's looking at 8 or 9 wins. And they're not going to be able to challenge. Our guy, Steve Days at Michigan Podcast, when he adds it all up, I don't know if you've seen this metrics or however you look at it. He thinks there's more, based on his metrics, more production coming back than any of the contenders in the Big Ten, and that actually this is a younger football team than what the narrative is out there, that okay, they lost all their productivity and they've got nothing.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a clip that goes around from, I honestly don't know what Ohio State podcast it is out there, that said like, oh, they're losing every returner or something like that. And it's just not true. You lose 3 starters on offense, but you replace one of them with a Remington Award finalist from last year. And the other one, obviously Stuber on the offensive line is going to be tough, but you've got guys that already have experience in Ryan Hayes, Trente Jones, Carson Barnhart. And then in the running back room, you've got, possible improvements with Donovan Edwards coming more onto the scene. So, on the defensive side, you could say that a little bit more because of the number 1 pick. I think everyone thinks that like, oh, when you lose Aiden Hutchinson, you're going to lose everyone. No, it's just not the case. They've got really good guys that are coming up. Mike Morris is about to have a breakout year. Taylor Upshaw is too. So yes, I think that like you lose the name, right? Then there's not really right now that go-to name on the defense where you're like, this is when you go to Big Ten Network or FS1 or whatever, and they've got the, star power, whatever thing, segment they're going to do there, you don't know who they're going to talk about. But from an entirety standpoint, they've got a ton of experience, guys that may not have started, but they got a lot of play over the past 3-4 years. They don't have freshmen that are coming onto the scene. They have redshirt sophomores and juniors that are going to be stepping into starting roles now, that I think it's going to be one of those things where all of a sudden those are going to be the stars and they're going to make themselves into these players. So I would agree with Steve. I think that there's a ton of production, and it's just going to be us figuring out and finding out who those guys are throughout the season and summer.
Justin, I'm going to nitpick just a bit about a particular sequence and what maybe lost with Hassan Haskins. Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum are going to give so many splash plays and gain so much yardage and all that. But 3rd and 2.5 against Penn State or Ohio State, a legit defensive front, is that going to be missed?
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. We've talked about it before too. The way that Hassan Haskins could make something out of nothing and get the 3rd and 2, or when he's stopped in the backfield or something to that effect, I think that the we got to get some pushback.
I thought I gave some pushback. The pushback was in the question. I just threw it out there.
There you go. I don't know if they're going to be better, but I think the narrative that they're going to take this huge step back is wrong. That's all I'm saying. It's hard to be better than 12-1 and win the Big Ten championship and put the stomping on Ohio State, right? Like, it's really hard to top that, especially when you have a number 1 pick possibly leaving. But
beat Ohio State by 3 touchdowns next year.
Right, exactly. And you have to do it in the shoe. Yeah, okay. So it's not going to be an easy task, but I think that there are those pieces that you're definitely concerned about. Like the Hassan Haskins or like the Aiden Hutchinson, the passion of those guys. I think there are guys that are stepping up and doing that thing, but it's still tough. When you have an Aiden Hutchinson, there's like a different vibe when he just walks into the room, and so it's really hard to replicate that. And I think the thing that nobody talks about, and this is why Ohio State's run is so unbelievable in the past, 15 years, not many people just keep going back to back to back to back to back, right? To put two seasons like that, not let alone 5, 6 or whatever, they've done, to put 2 seasons back to back and go 12-1 year in, year out, it's really, really hard. So do I think, if I had to put $10,000 on it, am I going to say they're going to go into the shoe and win and go 12-1 or 12-0 again or whatever? Probably not. But I don't think they're dropping back to 8-4, 9-3. I think that, I would say their ceiling, I don't think 10-2. I think 10-2 is probably right on the dot, but I'd say ceiling is definitely not 10-2. I still think the ceiling is up to 11-1 or 12-0.